All right, welcome to We Make Things, a podcast hosted by Kuang Lee from Satellite Films. I'm here with Erin Fleming, content producer from the SFMOMA. Is that your actual title?
Yes, it is. I'm at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and I'm their content producer in interpretive media.
So what does that title mean? I mean, like, there's different components to it. It sounds very impressive. What is the what are the elements of your title mean?
Yeah, I think what I'm really doing is facilitating meaning making for our visitors, or in other words, like helping them connect with the artwork using digital storytelling.
That's an awesome job and an awesome role. What are some different methods? What are some different platforms that you create this medium? Is it video? Is it audio? Is it brochures? Like what formats do you create this content with?
Yeah, format wise, primarily working in audio and video. And I think when people think of museums, they're really familiar with the audio guide. That's what we do. So, earbuds as you're walking through galleries, listening to the stories of an exhibition. But we also do videos. So artists at work showing their process, interviews with artists. We also have a podcast, so kind of longer form audio. And then we're responsible for on-site interactives. So any kind of, touch screen experience that you might have at the museum.
Sure.
And the main thing is that when people go into a museum, they see all of these objects on a wall, and maybe there's a label, but the meaning of them is not necessarily apparent on the surface. And of course, there can be multiple interpretations, and we want everyone to have their own personal experience. But like something like, just aesthetically, maybe there's a Yayoi Kusama installation, and there's so much going on. And then on the other hand, maybe it's a painting by Agnes Martin, and she's a minimalist artist, and so there's really not a lot going on. And so what I'm doing is kind of building a bridge or providing an entry point for people to come in and have their own connection to an artwork.
That's so interesting. Like, it's just such a very unique space. Like, can you walk the audience through, let's say you're creating a podcast or creating an audio guide. Can you walk me through how a piece of content comes from idea, like, oh, we should make an audio guide for this exhibit, to the production of it, to the publishing of it? Can you walk us through kind of how that's made?
Yeah. So same kind of cycle of production as another producer. Like we have like pre-production, production, and post-production. And so we usually start with what kind of context would help the visitor have a meaningful experience here. And so it's often kind of like, what is missing when you go to an art museum and you see these objects on the wall? They're totally taken out of their original context of having been created by a real human in their studio. It's messy, they have a lot of materials, they're grappling with ideas, there's trial and error, and you don't see any of that when you go to the museum. You just see it pristine, it's on the wall. And so a lot of what I think about doing is restoring some of that context and some of those ideas. Sure. And so then we might think, it'd be really useful to actually show someone the process of this being made, or to tell the story of why the artist got so obsessed with this idea and decided to make this thing.
So obviously, if you have like an audio guide, you're in the museum, in the physical space, and put it on, right? But like when you create a video, how is that video consumed by the museum goer?
Yeah, so we often talk about it as like the on-site experience and the off-site
Sure.
experience. And so when you're there in person, it makes sense to listen to an audio guide, and what it's doing is it's encouraging looking. It's really about like what's directly in front of you. And then the off-site, or as I sometimes call it, the online experience, is really about like, sometimes it's about digging deeper, sometimes it's about just, you're in your kitchen cooking dinner and you're listening to stories about art on a podcast, or you're sitting at your computer and watching cool videos. And they're very different. And one of my personal philosophies is that people are so saturated with media and have screens in front of them all the time that I really prefer for when somebody's at the museum and they're in the presence of artwork, I don't want to like put a video right in front of them and put a screen in between them and the artwork. And I'd rather, let that be a more visceral experience. And then afterwards they can watch a video. Or if you can't come to the museum, like obviously no one can come to the museum now because it's not open. But also if you live in a different part of the world, it's a way for people to have some experience with the art remotely too.
That's a great point. Like people who, we'll get into COVID in a bit, the pandemic in a bit, but it's like for even beyond that, for people who, let's say they live in Nepal and they can't get to the SFMOMA, it's a way for them to appreciate and enjoy that art while not being able to go to the museum itself.
Yeah.